Hi, and welcome to Poetry Today. My name is Jennifer Dotson. I'm the founder and program coordinator for Highland Park Poetry, and I have three guests today to focus on programs that are our celebration for National Poetry Month, which is April. My guests are Pamela Larson, who is the special program coordinator for both the Highland Park Poetry Chain Gang, as well as the Highland Park Poetry Synesthesia Project. The other guests are Marjorie Rissman and Khalid Muktar. Both of them are participating poets in the program. So Pam, please tell me, what is the Poetry Chain Gang?
The Poetry Chain Gang is a group of poets that signed up to do what's called poetry chaining. Poetry chaining is translating a poem from poet to poet, sort of like the game telephone, when you used to whisper in somebody's ear and they'd whisper it down a line of people, and at the end it comes out to be something completely different than where it began. And so the chaining is the same thing, except with a poem.
Tell me a little bit more about translation. What do you mean by translating a poem?
I'll give you the definition that we used for the Highland Park Poetry Chain Gang. It's homolinguistic translation. Take a poem, someone else's, or you actually could do your own, and translate it English to English by substituting word for word, phrase for phrase, line for line, or free translation as response to each phrase or sentence, or translate the poem into another literary style or diction.
By literary style, what are some examples that people could have chosen from?
Well, I think in that particular definition, it actually means switching from poetry to prose. Okay. But the way that it's come across from the poets that are involved in this is some of them have written sonnets. There's been a sestina. There have been poets that copied other poets that they're reading at the time in form. So, which is great, because then we know that the poets out there that are participating also read poetry and not only write it.
That's always good.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there are a lot of poets involved in the project. How many are participating?
25.
Oh, wow. That's quite a big group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how is the event going to culminate?
At the end, we will put it all together and put out a chapbook, a small little chapbook to participants, and also have a reading at Madame Zuzu's on April 12th, I believe, at 8 o'clock.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. Well, I hope should all be there.
I'll be there.
So that'll be Saturday, April 12th at Madame Zuzu's, which is located at 582 Roger Williams Avenue in Highland Park, and that'll start at 8 p.m. So the poets will be participating in the Chain Gang will all be there to read their poems, and then there'll be an open mic afterwards.
That'd be great.
Should be fun. But we don't want to give away that surprise. But we're all actually participants in the chain. So what we did was we sort of created a pretend mini chain to give our audience an idea of what chaining is all about. This mini chain started with a poem titled A Dead Rose by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. O rose, who dares to name thee, no longer roseate now, nor soft, nor sweet, but pale and hard and dry as stubble wheat, kept 7 years in a drawer, thy titles shame thee. The breeze that used to blow thee between the hedgerow thorns and take away an odor up the lane to last all day, if breathing now, unsweetened would forego thee. The sun that used to smite thee and mix his glory in thy gorgeous urn, till beam appeared to bloom and flower to burn, if shining now with not a hue would light thee. The dew that used to wet thee and white first grow incarnadined, because it lay upon thee where the crimson was, if dropping now would darken where it met thee. The fly that lit upon thee to stretch the tendrils of its tiny feet along thy leaf's pure edges after heat, if lighting now would coldly overrun thee. the bee that once did suck thee, and build thy perfumed ambers up his hive, and swoon in thee for joy, till scarce alive, if passing now, would blindly overlook thee. The heart doth recognize thee, alone, alone, the heart doth smell thee sweet, doth view thee fair, doth judge thee most complete, though seeing now those changes that disguise thee. Yes, and the heart doth owe thee more love, dead rose, than to such roses bold, as Julia wears at dances, smiling cold, lie still upon this heart, which breaks below thee. So that's the starting poem, and then Pam wrote the next poem.
A Dead Rose 2, translation by Pam Larson. What's the point of being a rose now, colorless, cold, and dust-stenched, hidden away for years, lovely flowered or dried death in a familiar shape? Wind used to carry your sweet aroma above all others, permeating dandelion fluff and butterflies. My inhaler sits on the nightstand. Sun would drench your coat until the warmth was shed to reveal your lovely pink virginity. My day planner has no images. Glistening nourishment deepening your crimson comfort, tempting taste buds with flesh. My toothbrush is muddied and dull. Fly would stop to rest, careful not to hurt your fragile aura, snuggling in your calm silk pillows. My bones chill even in daylight. Seductive bee, arrested in your beauty, stalking your attention until death. My bowl of ice cream is quite appealing. Yes, I know you. When I'm alone, I whisper that I want you. What I had, we had. My mirror has age spots. Red rose, my red rose, passion's presence wasted on the ignorance of children. My fingers crumble your corpse.
Nice.
And now Marjorie wrote the second poem in response to Pam's.
The Rose. Leaves begin to cover you. As I walked away, the November wind drying tears to salt on cheeks, already chapped from the cold. I did not get the answer to the riddle you left behind, neither on this day nor any day to come, which leaves me free to answer for you, to tell the story of the rose you left behind, crushed now, dried in wax paper, a vestige of the beauty it once must have been. While plundering through your possessions, packing, discarding, donating the books who were your best friends, I saved for late night hours, alone with sadness and exhaustion. I rested with the books to comfort me and marveled at the memories that many held, from stories read to me at bedtime to volumes opened under sheets, read by flashlight, the classics mixed with bestsellers of their day. In an early edition of A Joy of Cooking, I found the rose that began the mystery, one crushed red rose with a simple word written in mother's flowery script, the word a man's name unknown to me, not my father's name or brother's, not my grandfather's, nor my uncle's. Was this the man she loved first, a prom date, a college soulmate, but left in a cookbook? I thought of clandestine meetings grabbed between carpools or soccer games. The reason she always said she wanted yellow or pink, never red roses, even on Valentine's Day, from husband or children, trying to show how much they cared to please this wonderful woman. I searched the funeral service crowd, even at the cemetery. I scanned for an unknown man to come forward, but no strangers approached. I was left none the wiser, but before I departed from our family home, I took my mother's secret rose and buried it with her. A granite tombstone will seal away her fate.
Okay. And then you did our last poem in the
Yep.
sequence.
So that was a heavy read that I was handed, but I did the best I could. So, Rose. Now as I turn and walk away, my heart is silent as it grieves, as silent as she's come to lay beneath November fallen leaves. I've thought and thought about this rose she left behind for me to find, yet not one mite will it disclose its secret to my weary mind. I found it when I scoured through, for nothing in particular, her books and trinkets, old and new, each filled with memories of her. And as I leafed through pages of A Joy of Cooking, did I find a dry and withered rose of red that kissed a name and script refined, a name I did not recognize. Now when a rose with name you find, suggestive of love's demise, it plays such havoc with your mind. I can't deny my eyes did scan, assembled at that funeral hour, the face of each and every man to find the giver of that flower. But none advanced. This rose withholds a tale between its petals pressed, a secret only mother knows. So by her grave I let it rest.
Oh, wow. Okay, we've come a long way from Elizabeth Barrett Brown. Because by the end, there was no mention of the bee or the fly or any of that, and no mention of the ice cream bowl that you introduced. And you sort of brought a whole new narrative to the fact. You really sort of expanded with a whole narrative that you responded to and then put in rhyme.
Yeah, I just changed the form.
You like rhyme.
Yeah, I love it.
So I guess that's part of the excitement, is to see how it evolves and changes. As a participant, what was it like for you?
Well, I wrote mostly a story, and many of my poems are stories about people or the past, and this really just came out of my imagination. I hate to say it. It never happened to me, but I do have a copy of A Joy of Cooking, and that's about really it.
I see. Okay. So you just were riffing on the image of a dead rose, and you've fleshed out the narrative. Okay. All right.
And I think finding the rose was
important.
Yeah, that was important.
And for you, besides getting rid of all the these and thys and the more formal language.
I was trying to bring it into contemporary language, and I don't know why my inhaler sits on the nightstand came out, but once that came out, then each line at the end had to be something like that. So I just tried to modernize it a little bit.
Okay, interesting. Well, it should definitely be, as a participant, I'm very curious to hear all the other poems that are in the chain. That event on Saturday, April 12th at Madame Zuzu's will be packed with all the poets who participated, all 25, and plus anyone, friends and relatives who want to come and listen. We'll see the crazy journey that those poems go on. That'll be quite exciting. Pam, you're also doing this synesthesia project. That sounds really fascinating. Can you tell us about how that works and what's that about?
The synesthesia project actually came from one of the participating poets in the Exquisite Corpse that we had last April.
Okay.
And she wanted to see if everybody had the same sort of imagery or stimulus, what kind of poems would they all come out with? So I was also reading about synesthesia at the time, which is an actual phenomenon that some people experience. It's when someone listens to music, they see color, or when they read letters or numbers. Each letter or number has a color to them. So it's the automatic stimulation of a second sense. And in the 1870s, Charles Baudelaire and Arthur Rimbaud were French poets, and they dabbled in this. And so Arthur Rimbaud wrote a poem called Vowels, where he gave each vowel a color and then described that color using imagery. So what I decided to do is to take 5 items and we'll put them on a table in the back for poets to go up as they choose whenever during readings. And they will answer questions such as, what does the color yellow sound like? When you touch cotton, what does that feeling smell like? What does the sound of a car horn blowing look like? So you're taking a sense and you're moving it into another sense. And that opens up some neat connections for poets to use in their poetry. And so we'll ask poets to go through the table of the 5 items and answer the questions, and then write a poem to share if they want, again on the April 12th open mic portion.
When are they able to see the objects?
March 14th at the reading at the Art Center, and then March 29th at the Madame Zuzu's reading.
Okay, great. So anyone can participate who wants. They just
Absolutely.
they just show up and then they see the objects, and then are they writing one on the spot, or are they?
They can go home and write the poem portion
Okay.
of it, because the poetry part of it won't be revealed until later. But they
Okay.
can answer the questions on the spot. They'll actually be touching something, they'll be smelling something, they'll be hearing something. And you don't have to be part of the chain gang
Okay.
experience to do this. You can do it separately if you weren't able to sign up for that before.
Oh, great. That sounds very exciting. And Margie, I understand that Highland Park Poetry is collaborating this April with Illinois State Poetry Society for a special display at the Highland Park Public Library. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, in past years, the Illinois State Poetry Society has had library exhibits honoring April, the month of April being National Poetry Month. And I have been selected to head up a exhibit of our poems. And the poems theme this year is animals.
Okay.
So we should have a great exhibit of poems related to that subject.
Okay.
And Highland Park Poetry is collaborating with the state organization to make this happen.
So you don't have to be a member of the Illinois State Poetry Society to participate, correct?
As far as I know, not, but
Okay.
you do have to send in your poems to the Illinois State Poetry Society.
Okay.
And, you know, the exhibits are at other public libraries as well. Winnetka and Northbrook would be the closest to Highland Park. This
Okay.
is the first year we've had an exhibit at Highland Park.
Oh, wonderful. So patrons of the library can enjoy poetry and Poetry Month as well. That's
right.
terrific.
April 1st through the 30th.
Oh, wonderful. And then Pam, Highland Park Poetry is also bringing back a program that we've done in the past. It's called Lights, Camera, Poetry. Can you talk to us a little bit about that program?
Sure. That's the Cinepoems program. We did it last year. Not too many people are real familiar with it, so we make it a showcase. It's not a contest or anything. Anybody who sends something in is likely to be shown. And the submission deadline is May 31st. And you can find details on highlandparkpoetry.org. You can also see examples of the ones that were done last year. It's anyone from the Highland Park or Chicago area can submit, and you just email or mail a submission form. There's some releases you have to sign so that we can put it up on the internet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. You can take your digital camera. Most digital cameras, even phones, have video that you can use, and there's I think Windows and Macs both have free editing programs.
Oh, okay.
That you just use help if you want to do something and figure out how to do that. You can add music. The only thing that we say that you must do is you must incorporate one word. Cinepoems back in the 1920s actually were silent films. But because we encourage writing poetry, we ask that you put one word, either audible or it can even just be visual on screen. That's fine too.
So this is the fusion of poetry and film.
Correct.
And what are some of the, what's sort of the range of examples that you have that people, what types of things?
From the website?
Yeah.
We have people that are just reading poetry on camera, up to Al DiGenova from Chicago, who did some great, I believe it's his son actually, did some great video that captures the city of Chicago just wonderfully, and he reads the poem in the background.
Wow.
Yeah. Those are kind of my favorites, the ones that kind of tell a story and show some really good video along with it.
So you can tap your inner Alfred Hitchcock or
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg and express your poetry on film.
Absolutely.
That's an excellent idea. And then I guess the last thing related to the Poetry Month celebration is our Poetry Challenge, our annual Poetry Challenge. This year we have 3 themes. The themes are colors, which sort of relates to your inspiration with the Synesthesia project. But we're also looking for poems that are about fairy tales or legends. And the final category is cinquain. Cinquain is a very short 5-line poem. And all the information about our 2014 Poetry Challenge is available on the website, www.highlandparkpoetry.org. We've got submission guidelines as well as entry forms. And the selected poems will be featured in our Poetry Month display on the website. And that should be lots of great material. I guess I want to sort of wrap up with understanding these. We've talked about lots of prompts and games and everything from film. As a poet, why? What's with the games, or what's with the different themes? I mean, does that help you as a poet? Is it inspiring, or?
I think it is. I think it really challenges you to think differently, and really at the core of any poetic exercise is your ability to think, your ability to glean from something you hear or see, and your ability to make it interesting. And the whole point is, let's make someone cry or smile or laugh or just emote whatever it would have them emote. You're always looking for a reaction, right?
Okay.
I don't know of a humble poet. I don't think that exists. He wants to be humored, and he wants people to say that was cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's just challenging.
Okay.
So these exercises, they kind of, I think you had an interesting exercise. It was like a 5-minute, write something down, here's your theme. It was flowers or something, I can't remember. It's been a long time, but just having that constraint, either time or these are the things you can choose from, it kind of liberates you, right? Because you're kind of, yeah.
What about you, Margie? What's your feeling about that?
I like the challenge. I like the time limit, and I felt compelled to get this poem right back to you,
Yes.
not knowing how many people it was going to be passed on to.
Okay.
So I sat down and in 45 minutes
Woo.
wrote this poem.
Your fingers must have been smoking.
And I had not changed it. I mean, I may go back and edit it
Okay.
to keep it forever, who knows.
Okay.
This was an immediate response, and I like that feeling of reading something and responding to it,
Okay. Yeah.
kind of like a conversation with another poet.
And if I may add, what I really liked about the poem that was given to me, which is yours, is that it told a beautiful story, right? So I didn't want to change the story because this is too beautiful, and I don't know the after and the before it. So I said, "I'll make it a song. For that, you need meter and rhyme." And so that's all I really did, was just make it something that you could sing.
Okay. Pam, you're the sort of the brainchild behind all of these different programs. What about you? I mean, why do you seek to create these fun poetry games that poets enjoy?
I don't know. I think I like imagery. I really love imagery, and I think when I first started writing, my imagery was so obscure, and now I wanted to bring it into a more contemporary setting. what this helps me do, these games, is to make connections that you normally wouldn't make, as I said before with the synesthesia. And you can take kind of old images and put in new images and put them together and mix them up. And it's kind of like mixing colors. You take this color and that color, mix it together, you get a new
like
color.
a painter would do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I see. All right. Well, I guess, actually, I'm thinking of my own writing as a poet. I've been told that my images can be sort of predictable or, so I'm really looking forward to participating in the synesthesia. Well, apologies for anyone who suffers from this phenomenon. It does seem very stimulating to sort of approach the senses and our response to the senses in a whole new way. Music has a smell, or a touch has a sound.
I think
that type of
also
thing.
what's going to be interesting is because everybody has the same 5 objects.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody brings their own personal experience to it, their own baggage, so to speak, right?
Okay.
Poetic baggage. So
Yeah.
it will be interesting to see where everybody takes the same items.
Okay.
I think that'd be really interesting.
Well, and then you mentioned earlier that you're always glad to see that poets are reading other poets.
Oh, sure.
So what's on your night table right now?
I don't know. I don't know if this is correct. It's always French names. Okay. Guillaume Apollinaire.
Oh, okay.
Really famous for calligrams.
What's a calligram?
Calligrams are the concrete poetry, the poetry that looks like what you're talking about. It's
Okay.
visual. But also, he also is really good with imagery too, and that's always what I'm looking for. I really like Arthur Rimbaud. He's one of my favorite poets, but I don't like his poetry. I just like his process, and I like a few snippets of his poems, but I don't like his poems in total.
Okay. All right.
So I think I'm allowed to do that. So.
Okay. Well, at least you're able to get something positive from reading his stuff, that you're enjoying the process. And,
his process is amazing. I mean, he was the hero of Andre Breton for surrealism because he came from symbolists.
Right.
He was a symbolist.
Well, it seems like we're participating in a game that's been going on for a long time, and we're part of a great creative, history. We're a longer chain, a journey, and a longer chain going back all the way to what, the
1870s.
1870s. All right.
1870s is where
No
the
pressure,
synesthesia comes
everybody.
from.
No pressure. All right. Do you have any poetry books that you're reading right now, Marjorie?
I always keep a volume of Billy Collins
Okay.
by my bed.
What attracts you to Billy Collins' writing? Very different from Apollinaire and
For sure.
Rimbaud.
Perhaps the American concreteness of his poetry,
Okay.
his accessibility, and there's always some good emotional feeling in his poems.
Great.
And I like that.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. This has been a great experience. And what are you reading right now?
Oh, well, with 2 babies in bed, Montmorency's Book of Rhymes, I forget the other. But
Okay.
there you go, now you know my
That helps
secret.
you rhyme, though, right?
Let's talk your rhymes.